How to discern if a church has grace or not? Is it true that if the bishop teaches heresy, then all the jurisdictions connected with that bishop become graceless immediately? No, it's not true. We've been talking about this for years. Look at my videos online, uh, the Zealot Jungle and all these others that we have a playlist about the problem with the temptation on the right, which embraces this ecclesiology. So let's think about this for a minute. Is it true that if a bishop teaches heresy, then all the jurisdictions connected with that bishop become graceless? It's so absurd. It's utterly absurd to think about that. It's legalistic and it's magical. So if somebody, let's just take to show the absurdity of this. Somebody's in Africa. There's bishops all over Africa. They're teaching heresy. And people all around the world may or may not even know about this teacher of heresy. And the bishops around them are being, indifferent, or they're worldly, or maybe they agree with him, or maybe they're just not empowered to do anything, or maybe they're not doing what they should be doing, like really resisting him. And so he continues to teach his heresy in his diocese, and then maybe a couple of people start liking his ideas. And when exactly does it mean, like, what's the magical moment that everybody loses the grace of God because they, wherever they are in the face of the earth, didn't do what? Break communion with him. And what's the consequence of that? What kind of ecclesiology would that lead to? Total division of not just those people from the preacher of heresy, but from themselves, from among themselves. Orthodox would be divided with other Orthodox because different people would react in different ways. So with the heresy of ecumenism, we have some local churches that are totally ecumenist and some local churches that
Okay, let me see here. Okay, can you hear me now? No. All right. Well, that's just weird. I'm not sure why. No. Okay, so if I'm gonna try to. I just kicked myself in and out, but this is really weird. Oh, now I got. Okay, so now I'm starting to hear audio. Okay, perfect. Okay, great. Thank God. All right, let's try to put him back now. All right, so let's see here. Excellent. Great, 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 great. All right, so let's share the screen. And back to him now. Hopefully we can hear him. So I'm going to rewind a sec. Can you guys hear him?
Preacher of heresy, but from themselves, from among themselves. Orthodox would be divided between with other Orthodox because different people would react in different ways. So with the heresy of ecumenism,
can you hear the
we have
nonsense
some local
or
churches
no?
that are
Can you hear what he's saying? Okay, good, good. All right, let's continue on then.
totally ecumenists, and some local churches that are resisting ecumenism. We have the church.
There are no local churches that are resisting ecumenism. Please stop saying this. You mean Patriarchalia. He's literally the only one. Bulgaria and Georgia pulled out for political reasons. There are no local world Orthodox churches resisting ecumenism. Please stop saying that. Okay. I mean, I can always start it over, but I'm not going to address the points over 2 minutes in. There's no point because it's just ridiculous. He basically says, well, division is bad, and can one bishop cause all of the bishops to lose their stuff? And of course not. But I'll put it back so everyone has it. Maybe we'll even cut out the beginning. We'll start this over. A bishop preaches heresy. Does grace leave him?
How to discern if a church has grace or not? Is it true that if the bishop teaches heresy, then all the jurisdictions connected with that bishop become graceless immediately? No, it's not true. We've been talking about this for years. Look at my videos online, the Zealot Jungle and all these others that we have a playlist about the problem with the
still a straw man
temptation on the right, which embraces this ecclesiology. So let's think about this for a minute. Is it true that if a bishop teaches heresy, then all the jurisdictions connected with that bishop become graceless? It's so absurd. It's utterly absurd. To think about that.
Yeah, sure.
It's legalistic and it's magical.
Right.
So
none of us believe that, but okay.
Let's just take to show the absurdity of this. Somebody's in Africa. There's bishops all over Africa. They're teaching heresy. And people all around the world may or may not even know about this teacher of heresy. And the bishops around them,
like he ordains a deaconess or something, or a woman deacon,
are being indifferent, or they're worldly, or maybe they agree with him, or maybe they're just not empowered to do anything, or maybe they're not doing what they should be doing, like really resisting him. And so he continues to teach his heresy in his diocese, and then maybe a couple other people start liking his ideas. Mm-hmm. And when exactly does it mean, what's the magical moment that everybody loses the grace of God because they, wherever they are in the face of the earth, didn't do what? Break communion with him. And what's the consequence of that? What kind of ecclesiology would that lead to? Total division of not just those people from the preacher of heresy, but from themselves, from among.
Yeah, that's how it's worked over the past 2,000 years. It's even led to overlapping jurisdictions, as I pointed out, in the case of the Arians, in the case of the Nestorians, in the case of the Iconoclasts, in the case of the Monophysites, in the case of the Monophilites.
And themselves, Orthodox would be divided between with other Orthodox because different people would react in different ways. So with the heresy of ecumenism, we have some local churches that are totally ecumenists and some local churches that are resisting ecumenism.
Which local churches are resisting ecumenism? The only thing we know, and we covered this before the audio issues came up, the only ones we know of are supposedly Georgia and Bulgaria, but we know that they did it for political reasons. We know the entire synod of the Georgians, except for Patriarch Lee himself, who is dying, are all for ecumenism. There are literally pro-Western demonstrations in the streets happening right now, presumably, through NGOs and so on and so forth. We know what's going to happen with Georgia. It's just Patrick Leah's death will be the linchpin that ends that. There's even true Orthodox waiting for that to happen, so they can start being ecumenists, and the true Orthodox can just come in and take everyone back. Like, Georgia has been frozen in time since 1997. Bulgaria, not so much after all of their bishops were exposed about 10 years later as being agents of the KGB. But yeah, there are no local churches against ecumenism.
We have the Church of Georgia that has synodical decisions against.
Yeah, we mentioned that one.
The branch theory against and removed themselves from the World Council of Churches and taught that and rejected them.
And it was for political reasons. They did it because there was a mass, group public open letter to Patrick Leah from all of the monasteries in Georgia, threatening to leave if he continued to participate in ecumenism, because he was already participating in it.
The various heretical ecclesiological theories, they've actually taken a lot of steps with the Church of Bulgaria, which removed itself from the World Council of Churches, which has issued statements against.
Also, we covered that one. Yep, they did that for political reasons in 1997 too, and then their bishops were all exposed to be KGB agents. The
various heretical, ideas in ecumenism, and there are many good bishops there who reject ecumenism, as there are in the Church abroad.
Good KGB bishops.
So those two local churches, they haven't broken communion with the various bishops who are teaching heresy.
He mentioned the Church abroad, but he didn't mention the Moscow Patriarchate they're under, and he didn't mention it because if you go to mospat.ru, which is the Department for External Church Relations, you can see them meeting with the Monophysites, with the Nestorians, with the Armenians, so on. They even occasionally meet with the Vatican. It's okay. That's what we got. Okay.
So they're all, even though they teach Orthodoxy, even though we have saints from these churches and recently glorified saints, they're all heretics. So St. Paisius, St. Porphyrios, St. Iakovos.
We can't forget St. Gabriella, who was also added by the same people who added Paisios, Porphyrios, and Iakovos. By the way, 2 out of 3 of those elders having said that you should be under ecumenists, and then having a nun who was basically a Hindu.
St. Gabriel, St. Eusebius Popovich, he didn't break with the Serbian church. He's a heretic.
Actually, that's not true. He did break with the Serbian church at the end of his life. There are articles about this. It's been discussed. The main person who was who argued that point was Bishop Artemije in the Serbian church, who ended up breaking from the Serbian church and Serbian state church himself. So with all due respect to all the free Serbians, the Serbian Patriarchate is covering up the truth.
He's graceless. I mean, it's absurd. It's stupid. It's dumb. Why do people even pay attention to these theories? This is not reality.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is stupid. Not only are they stupid and baseless theories, they're not reality for us. So it's kind of horrible to present it like they are our position when they're not. Now, granted, today I was actually having to defend, and this is where, we get kind of Twitter crazy. Today I had to, I'll get to that after the video. Go
back to the 4th century. I've talked about this so many times. Go back to the 4th century. You have after the First Ecumenical. None of the old calendar / zealot, not according to knowledge people ever talk about this. They just ignore.
We literally talk about it all the time.
Or they say, oh, it's just not right. Whatever. I'd like to hear an answer to this. So you go back to the 4th century, after the First Ecumenical Council, which has condemned Arianism. Of course, Arianism continued to live, came back again and again with the various emperors who were entertaining it. And then you have hierarchs who are elected in part by Arians who become saints of the church.
He's referring to Saint Meletius, who then, after his election, made a confession of faith, which upset the people who consecrated him. And it turns out it became one of the factions that were anti-Arian. There were actually 3 or 4 of them. And this isn't helping his case.
I've already mentioned this tonight. Saint Meletius of Antioch, who ordained Bishop St. Basil and St. John Chrysostom, who was the father of the Second Ecumenical Council, who they embraced as a great...
Who was also not recognized by half the church, including the Pope of Rome and St. Jerome and others. This is exactly these are our points. To say that this represents you when you're all united in heresy, when it doesn't represent us, when we're all disunited but Orthodox, is a little bit backwards.
Father at that council. He was elected in part by Arians in his diocese. They thought he was going to be Arian. It says right there in the life of St. Meletius. They thought he was rejected, and there was a schism in his diocese because some people were zealots and they didn't accept him because he was partly elected by Arians and he wasn't kicking the Arians out quick enough, and he received some of the Arians.
I'm going to interrupt Father Peter because this is an interesting point. Artemia is also covering up the truth about deadly ecumenism. I mean, I don't know. I thought that their group kind of does speak about ecumenism. What I don't think is realistically ever going to happen is they're never going to make peace with the Serbian Patriarchate. They're going to have to deal with the Serbian True Orthodox under Bishop Akakia. It's that simple. They may not. Maybe it won't be this generation that deals with them, but it might be the next one, because otherwise they're not going to deal with the ecumenists unless they rejoin the ecumenists and become ecumenist.
Or something And so they became zealots and said he's not the real bishop because he had been exiled, and then they elected another bishop. And that was the schism, the famous schism with Paulinus. So
it wasn't just two parties. And Paulinus was recognized by Rome.
They were supported by the people of the West, but the Orthodox in the East supported Meletius. So St. Meletius,
not all the Orthodox in the East supported Meletius,
would be graceless according to this, because it was after the council. I mean, this is even more egregious because it's hard to accept that, because we say, well, once the ecumenical council is established, you can't have communion with any of the people who've been condemned, and yet we do actually see that happen. There was some communion on some level,
but
because they elected him. They thought he was like that.
That's actually not true. These groups were rebaptizing each other. This is an oversimplification of history to say that the different factions were in communion with each other when they didn't even recognize each other. This is a version of history that sounds like a little golden book, but what it doesn't sound like is the actual history. Let me see here. Enemies with too much Greek borrowed lunacy of division. I'm not going to judge on the ethnic thing. I mean, I get it. Everyone has the right to an opinion, but let's not make it a Greek or a Russian or a blah. Let's try to keep it. Try to keep it positive. That's just my view. I'm just a dumb American, so.
And they elected St. Meletius. Same thing with St. Cyril of Jerusalem, the great teacher of the catechetical school, which we treasure his teachings, right? He was partially elected by Arians. Same thing with St. Ambrose of Milan. Read the life of St. Ambrose of Milan. Some of the people in his diocese, his parish, they thought he was an Arian, and that's why they.
Well, it's interesting that he brings up St. Ambrose of Milan, because that's right. There were suspicions about groups that were being taken over by the Arians. This is part of the reason St. Hilary of Poitiers wrote against Auxentius, which I highly recommend if you hear Bishop Enoch's reading on the Traditional Western Orthodoxy channel. This isn't like some news flash for us. This is the church's history, which involves a lot of division and a lot of confusion when heresy takes over. So for Father Peter to pay it lip service while actually pretending that what happened didn't happen is disingenuous, to say the least.
They elected him. So this stupid theory, I'm going to get more and more, strident about it, because it's just dumb, and it's just coming in and it's upending.
And it's a straw man.
The struggle against ecumenism. It's actually demonic, because it takes people away from the struggle. It takes them into division. It creates divisions. It's legalistic. It's short-sighted. It's not organic. It doesn't come from the saints of our day.
This is so stupid. Honestly, I'm getting actually angrier about this, especially when he says things like, this doesn't come from the saints of our day. I had to point out to one of these people that in some cases, the ecumenical patriarchate will even take true Orthodox saints, look for details and random babushkas to say that that wasn't really what happened, and rewrite their life stories so they could stick them in the calendar, because the true Orthodox saints are so holy that they're penetrating the lives of the new calendarists, and they don't know what to do. So they have to come up with some way to make up stuff. It's embarrassing. This is so embarrassing.
The saints of our day don't have this ecclesiology. Even those who were on the old calendar don't have this ecclesiology.
That's also false.
Teach this idea. Graceless immediately.
Well, no one's teaching graceless immediately, but it's been 100 years, man. It's not like this has been they became ecumenists yesterday. They've been praying with the Pope of Rome and commemorating him first in the taxes for 6 decades, and all of a sudden they're like, it doesn't break like this. It's kind of stupid. Oh, shoot, what did I do? Okay, hold on. Sorry about that. Let me start this again.
Graceless, because that bishop started teaching heresy. If you look at Canon 15, which is what's cited by these people, which is a beautiful canon, it doesn't support this idea. It doesn't say you got to break, otherwise you're graceless. There's none of that talk.
Yeah, it doesn't say that, but that doesn't matter. What matters is the duty it enjoins you to perform, which is to leave the heretical bishop. Let me answer some comments. 2033 will be 2,000 years looking for the return of Jesus Christ. Is world orthodoxy wanting everyone to come together despite heresies we should just run from so Christianity can show a false front of unity? That's the plan that they kind of put on paper. So, it's an awful and evil plan. So, yeah, definitely you don't want to be part of that. Look at the comments. He even uses St. Mark of Ephesus as an example. Wow, Lord have mercy. That's embarrassing. It's all so tiresome. Let me see here. Father, out of curiosity, are you in the Avlona Synod? No. Archbishop Irenaeus of Texas is in the Avlona Synod. We are in communion with the Avlona Synod, but I'm not actually under Archbishop Irenaeus. I'm under Metropolitan John of the Metropolia. So the heretics are trying to rewrite people to keep people enslaved to them. Absolutely. Everything from St. Mirta Diosia to, the 9/11 church being Metropolitan Pavlos. They were rewriting it all. Sounds demonic. Well, yes, it does. Pure scholastic preacher. He's more like an RC preacher. Now, Jesuits, well, he's not. He's definitely not citing the example of the fathers.
Like there. It supports somebody who confesses and ceases commemoration. It doesn't condemn them if they don't. It doesn't say that immediately the person they cease commemoration, he's immediately like everybody's graceless because.
See, now this is a demonic argument, and no offense to Father Peter, but I'm starting to just call it a demonic argument, and I've put it up on my Twitter. May as well. Oh wow, I've had 20 since then. So let me get to that point, and it's a very, very simple point that I have been trying to make very clearly. And I will find it. Let me see here. Okay. All right. A bunch of Uniate papists that I was arguing with earlier. Oh boy, this is going to be long. Let me see here. Okay. Quick scroll. This is all defending Orthodox ethos, ironically, because this guy started actually saying that they were schismatic. But schismatic from who? If they're World Orthodox, they're not schismatic to them at all. So it just was nonsense. But yeah, let me see here. I can. All right. Share this tab instead. And then I ended up in a fight with this guy, this Ephraim Christophoro, who just basically defends all the random stuff they say. But my point was this. The main argument being used against true Orthodox is that you can break communion with heretics, but don't have to. And that's a demonic argument. If you apply it to any Christian duty and see what happens, you can pray, but don't have to. You can fast, but don't have to. And so on. The whole point is that Christian duties are things we're enjoined to do, and the only people telling us not to do them are usually the demons. So I don't highly recommend this. Then apparently, this was, yesterday. But then this guy, this fellow here, and I'm going to point this out because he basically just came out of nowhere, never heard of him. And he came out and basically started talking about violence, like talking about self-defense, like you can defend yourself, but you don't have to. So I basically pointed out that this was like comparing it to assault, at which point, he went with what I called word salad because it seemed like word salad. At which point he decided he would try to publicly attack me with a kind of a list of all my great sins, even though half of these things weren't even true. And so I called him out on it. And the point is, apparently they're really, really getting mad over on Twitter. Like, if I respond to like this Ephraim guy, or if I respond to this Maximologia guy, or, ultimately these guys are so used to sticking with the same narrative. They're all a bunch of tiny groups of nobodies who will never be seen. They're not the church and blah, 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 blah. I start putting up pictures and they start having apoplexy. It's like they're like terrified that people actually know, oh no, there's true Orthodox all over the world. Yeah, like we knew that we're all over the world. Like, okay. Like, but the point is what they don't want is for us to mention that. Yeah, and then I forgot about St. Nicholas of Ground Zero, the fact that church has become de facto the head ecumenist church in Gorch. It was one point under Metropolitan Petros of Astoria prior to its destruction. That is correct. Up until 1993, that was a true Orthodox church. Why do they have to hyper-focus on when grace departs? I don't recall St. Maximus arguing the exact time grace departs, rather than the heresy is condemned. He says his conscience does not allow him to abide. if I had if I had more space or like a little table, I would show you what's happening. What's happening is what's known as a shell game. If you're familiar with these things, if you've ever lived in a city or anything like that, it's where you put a little ball and you have a couple of cups, and then you have to guess the ball, and then like, whoa, you usually most people are scammed out of their money using various tricks that the scammer will use. Not that I'm calling Father Peter a scammer, even though this is 3-card Monty. Thank you. Well, the guy who falsely accused me and lied about my life and so on, he actually did block me. And look at us not being mad, and they're calling us mad for it. Yeah, that's true. But 3-card Monty is the game where basically it's a game of deception to scam people out of their money. That's what's really happening when people start asking, like, they start, you start hearing this. Well, why are they worried about the when? Well, the reason that they're worried about the when is because you guys have been telling them to stay with the flock when they're doing, gay marriage baptisms and making women deacons. That's why they're asking when, and your real answer is never. And so the point is, they're spending their money waiting for the ball to show up or waiting for the right card to drop. It's never going to drop. Their money's sucked out. Their whole thing is, it's gone. Let me see here. What do we have? All that drama is boring. Nobody who's interested in what is true cares about that. I don't know. Let me see here. Father Peter is shameless in heresy, rationalizing, trying to localize anathemas that surpass time, space, or any other borders he tends to invent. Sorry, he didn't comment. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I feel sorry. I feel bad. Well, now I feel bad for me because I wasted 2 hours, having to defend him against some ardent new calendarist who's in favor of Elpidoporus and all that stuff. But what's the point? It's just like it's rather thankless, I would say. But in any case, I'm big on honesty is the thing. That's kind of what it comes down to. And so I feel like this is just not honest presentation. They're just leading people to get conditioned to it. For every thing Father Peter will say, you have to deal with Elpidoporus of America shoving some other degeneracy down the throats of the faithful. And that's conditioning. It's to get them used to being in a degenerate world. And that is the world that they want to create. They just can't say it openly.
Like 5 minutes ago, he had grace, and now he sees commemoration. Now he has grace. The bishop's graceless. I mean, it doesn't add up. It's very legalistic. It's very legalistic, this whole theory. There's far more.
Next card. Follow the bouncing ball.
Far more difficult to explain. Church history is filled with all kinds of things that are difficult to put in little boxes. The short answer is follow the saints, the consensus of the saints in our 20th century.
Not modern elders. No, that's not the saints. That's modern. Those are modern elders made by Patriarch Bartholomew. No, follow the saints. Follow what St. Mark of Ephesus did. Follow what St. Maximus the Confessor did. Follow what St. Meletius of Antioch, who you mentioned, did. Follow what St. Jerome did. Follow what all the other saints and the fathers of the church, not elder what's-his-face or elder blah, blah, or whatever. Follow the saints. And our holy elders on Athos and on Esphigmen who always say follow the saints, but they mean the saints, not the people who say Bartholomew is a sign from God.
They don't. They fight ecumenism in their own way, some of them differently, some others. They don't do that.
Some of them, they don't do
Saint Seraphim of Bulgaria, a great fighter of ecumenism, went to Moscow with Patriarch Sergius, or maybe it was other patriarch after him. I can't remember what year exactly.
Patriarch Alexis, and yes, he did. And a lot of people, there were a lot of extenuating reasons for that. And that's complicated and a difficult and confusing part of the Soviet period. We don't live in that world. We live in a world where everything has been exposed, where we know who the ecumenists are, where they're open about it, where they've been open about it for decades. That's the world we live in.
The Patriarch Sergius left. I think it was Patriarch Sergius. 1948, I think he was still there. Anyway, it was definitely Sergianistic. And he went there and he participated in the council. He must have communed with them.
You know what's interesting is that he did a 10-part series or something on all the new martyrs of the church, and now he's backing into this corner. Why?
And he's a fighter of ecumenism. What do you do with that? Like, why? Was he a big compromiser? Let's get a little more serious. This is like not serious. Okay.
It is definitely not serious. If there's one thing I can say is that this constant game of 3-card Monty, this constant shell game. Yeah, they fight ecumenism in their own way. Yeah, they fight ecumenism in their own way by not fighting ecumenism. So it's all so tiresome. I hate to be the meme, but man, it really is. Just wow. Yep, it's the same issue politics have nowadays. Conservatism being conservation of the previous status quo, and liberalism being a changing of it. Problem is, it's still a state of error. Well, I think that's a very good way of putting it, because what it really comes down to is, having gone through 100 years of this, honestly, I think even the early, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I would think even like the early ecumenists would have vomited if they saw what this has become, let alone the saints. Maybe they would have loved it. I don't know. Yeah, it's tragic. The whole thing is tragic. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna. Yeah, a surgeonist who fights ecumenism is still a surgeonist. Very true. Is anyone here in the GOC in North America? Okay, to understand the GOC, the GOC literally stands for Genuine Orthodox Church. That can be a number of different groupings, the largest one being the GOC under Archbishop Kallinikos, and their metropolitan here is Metropolitan Demetrius, whose anniversary is actually coming up by the end of this week. So many years to him. It can also mean the GOC under Archbishop Irenaeus, who's our own Greek bishop. It could also be the GOC Macarios, which is common in Canada. They have a Metropolitan Macarios there. There's the GOC in other areas. There's quite a few GOC churches, and each one of those bishops has a number of parishes. But now I should say, if you're talking about the GOC of America, the GOCA, Gregory of Colorado, he is considered a schismatic by every true Orthodox synod in the world. And having said that, I think we're out of questions. I'm not taking any more questions, putting this sign up, and I'm going to say thank you to everyone, for our listeners, to those who asked questions and those who had comments, and to those who support our mission. Support the channel. We at NFTU need your help. Support us by subscribing or donating at nftu.net, on GiveSendGo, or on Odyssey. We remember all of you in our prayers, and thank you for all support for all the support for NFTU. And I guess I was supposed to use my intro, so I guess I'll use it as a closing.